of the best investigators I had.
But?
She's different.
In what way?
In every way.
Something wrong with the report?
Anything you chose not to disclose?
He's clean, in my opinion. He's honest.
Our credibility isn't dead yet.
Mine is.
He's had a long-standing sexual relationship with his co-editor of the magazine. Sometimes he pleasures her. Not often enough, in my opinion.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome back to another week at the movies. This marks the final episode of Thank You for Watching for the year 2011. We have a huge show for you, starting with one of the best films of 2011, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
I need your help. You come stay on the island. A way of avoiding all those people that you might want to avoid right now. You will be investigating thieves, misers, bullies, the most detestable collection of people that you will ever meet. My family.
It is impossible to discuss the merits of the newest version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo without mentioning the original Swedish version or the amazing novel it spawned from. Many critics will feel that because the original version was so good, that there was no reason for this one to exist at all, or that it was just unnecessary. I dispute this wholeheartedly. This film is absolutely necessary, and much like the American remake of Let the Right One In, a fascinating improvement on what was already a wonderful film. Now, the truth is that the basic plot of both of these films is pretty much the same. There is more time in this film devoted to the subplot involving Miguel Blomkvist, here played by Daniel Craig, bringing down the Wennerstrom Company, but for the most part they are very similar. It revolves around Heinrich Wenger and his search for the killer of Harriet Wenger. He brings on Blomkvist to try and discover this 40-year-old mystery that has existed on the island. The plot is still essentially about these two very opposite people who connect with one another during this intriguing and very dangerous investigation. However, there are two huge differences that I believe turn this great story into a masterpiece of cinema. The first of these things is director David Fincher. Never in the history of popular culture has there been a more perfect marriage of man and material. Imagining another director making a better version of this film after seeing how breathtaking his team of cinematographers and editors have put this film together is impossible. This movie is an absolute firecracker of a film, from the awesome opening credit sequence through a decidedly different and more melancholy ending. This film may be over 2.5 hours, but it is the fastest 2.5 hours I've spent watching anything this year. Honestly, I didn't want it to end. The other piece of this perfected puzzle, and surprisingly the more important one, is the revelation that is Rooney Mara in the role of the punk hacker ward of the state, Lisbeth Salander. In the original film, Noomi Rapace was outstanding as Lisbeth, a real badass that it was impossible not to root for. However, despite the difficulties of her past, she always seemed bigger than herself. On the other hand, Mara plays Lisbeth with a certain reservation. She is dark and mysterious, but she is also clearly battered and bruised inside. There's a pain in her eyes, and the way that she averts looking at any man she comes across unless she has to is quite sad in a way. This does not mean that Lisbeth is any less of a badass, it's quite the contrary. She's almost scary in how dark she can be. The difference is Mara gets everything about who Lisbeth is, inside and out. You know this early on, but it becomes distressingly clear how masterful a performance this is when Lisbeth comes to meet her guardian at his home for some money. The original version of the infamous rape scene was mostly just cringe-inducing and a bit emotionally cold. The new film is a whole different ball game. The combination of Mara's unique vulnerability and Fincher's expert cinematic touch make this sequence deeply felt. Instead of wanting to look away, you find yourself wanting to reach in and save her. It left me clinging to my wife's hand and caused me to shed more than one tear. This is where the stark contrast of these two versions of this film differ, and a much more emotional experience has been crafted. 4 huge stars for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Someone's locked the door.
The keys, Snowy. Not the sandwich. The keys.
The Adventures of Tintin is probably one of the funnest times you are going to have at the movies all year long. But don't take my word for it. Its intended audience is the one that you should be listening to.
Adventures of Tintin is the best movie I've seen all year. And the best part in it is when he jumps off of the motorcycle and he breaks it and then swings on this little ball and then catches a bird. And he falls down on this raft. And then the guy tells him to let go of the bird. And he says, or this man died. So he dropped him. So he let go of the bird then. And then he jumped in the water, like dived in the water. And he caught it.
Wow. Yes, I remember the scene you're talking about, Hayden. That was the coolest scene in the movie. And you are going to love every moment of The Adventures of Tintin. It's exciting, fun, non-stop action, and a good old-fashioned romp similar to Raiders of the Lost Ark for the family to go out and see this weekend. Do not miss this film. 4 stars for The Adventures of Tintin.
Com check. We're live.
Target acquired.
What the hell is that?
Abort.
Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol is the #1 reason to go to a movie theater all year. Now, I'm not saying that this is one of the best films of the year. There are many plot issues and stuff, but I think why we go to the movies in the first place is because we want to have a massive experience that is truly entertaining, and that is where this film succeeds. You have to see it in IMAX. The basic plot here is that Ethan Hunt, again played by Tom Cruise, is framed for the bombing of the Kremlin in Russia. IMF is disavowed and Hunt has to find a crazy bad guy named Hendricks, played by Michael Nyqvist, before he starts World War III by blowing up an American city with a nuclear bomb. So, he enlists the help of a couple IMF pals, played by Simon Pegg, Paula Patton, and Jeremy Renner, to try and save the day. But who cares about the plot? Seriously, it's just an excuse to get us through the door so that we can see these amazing, spectacular action sequences. The entire section of the film in Dubai would be worth the price of admission alone. In this 30-minute section, Tom Cruise scales the largest building in the world, which is one of the most amazing things ever put on film. They stage a double meeting between the bad guys, very clever, and Cruise chases the bad guy through a massive sandstorm, all in IMAX. It's all enough to take your breath away. And just part of this amazing spectacle. 4 stars for Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
What do you see?
Everything. That is my curse.
Everybody loves Robert Downey Jr., and they should. What's not to love? The guy is one of the most entertaining actors to watch on the silver screen, which is why, despite some of the same flaws as the first Sherlock Holmes, this is a pretty good time. This time around, Sherlock Holmes is picking up the case where he last left it off. He suspects that a brilliant professor named James Moriarty, played by Jared Harris, is up to something. What is that something? As usual, only Holmes knows the answer. So Holmes and Dr. Watson, again played by Jude Law, set out on a huge adventure to catch the evil Moriarty, who is clearly doing something bad. Along their journey, they run into a gypsy named Madame Semza, played by Noomi Rapace, the original girl with the dragon tattoo, who is searching for her brother. How does this connect to Holmes' story? Well, again, only Holmes knows. This is the biggest problem with this movie. You never really feel like you are putting any pieces of the puzzle together yourself. Holmes clearly is, and he'll explain it to you all in the end, but most of the running time you spend trying to keep up with what's going on in Holmes' head. I personally believe that most of you will just feel as lost as I was. So, did I like it? Yes and no. But mostly yes, because of the wonderful action set pieces and truly perfect last 30 minutes or so. I am of the mind that all is well that ends well, and Sherlock Holmes ends wonderfully. 3 stars for Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows.
Buddy Slade and I are meant to be together, and I'm here to get him back.
I'm pretty sure he's married with a kid on the way.
No, kid's here. I'm cool with it. I mean, I've got baggage too.
Charlize Theron has always been a wonderful actress, so it should come as no surprise that she gives a good performance in Jason Reitman's new film Young Adult. What might surprise you is how little that matters in a movie this unlikable. The plot here is really simple. As a matter of fact, it's kind of insultingly simple for a movie that just got nominated for an award. Mavis, played by Theron, gets a picture of her high school boyfriend's new baby, and decides it's a slap in the face. She convinces herself that he is miserable, and she is going to steal him back from his wife. She goes back home, where she meets Matt, played by Patton Oswalt, at a bar, before she meets her old fling Buddy, played by Patrick Wilson. Matt works as kind of the voice in the audience's head, saying this whole idea is really friggin' stupid. However, of course, she doesn't listen. I have read that this film is a deep character drama about not growing out of the popularity of high school, or that it's the funniest real comedy of the year. The truth is, this film is not deep in any way, or about anything. And it's not really funny either. It's mostly a painful exercise in futility. You know exactly how this movie is going to end when it starts, and you are nothing more than disappointed when it gets there. Theron and Oswalt have some decent scenes together that give this movie a few laughs, but barely make up for the utter simplicity of everything surrounding this terrible film. 2 stars for young adult. The Artist is for some reason being called the best film of the year by just about everybody. I definitely understand why it is that people like the film, but best picture of the year? I don't know. The first 30 minutes of this film are spectacular. They're whimsical, they move well, and they show everything that is great about silent film. But for about the middle hour of the film, it's just kind of a drag, and it shows the exact opposite. The reasons why silent film doesn't necessarily work, why it can't convey so much as far as drama and sadness and, you know, what it is that we get out of listening to sound and real music and actors actually vocalizing what it is that they're feeling. Now, the end of it is wonderful as well, and it definitely is a good film. I would not tell you not to see it, but there's no reason for you to run out and see this film on the big screen. However, last but not least, I do want to say that I do believe that Jean Dujardin, the guy that plays the lead character Valentine in this film, is absolutely wonderful. And I do hope that he gets nominated for an Academy Award, because what he does with his eyes and expressions are really quite something special. 3 stars for The Artist.
It's a bit complicated. What's so complicated about this place? It's a zoo.
Yay!
Last up on the show this week is We Bought a Zoo, a decent film that I think will do pretty well in the box office due to the fact that it has some really heartwarming subject matter at heart. In this story, Matt Damon plays Benjamin Mee, a real character who lost his wife and decided to kind of change his entire life. What does he do? Oh, well, he buys a zoo, and he tries to take on the responsibility of putting this zoo together. The problem of this movie is not necessarily that it's a bad movie or that it doesn't have a lot of heart or that it's not particularly acted well, because it is. The problem is this movie is probably about 20 minutes too long. It just drags a little bit too much, and the ending sequence in this movie is so perfect that it makes you wish that the rest of the film was nearly as good as it is. But all in all, a mild recommendation. 2.5 stars for We Bought a Zoo. Alright, the last review we're going to do this year is kind of a recap of a review that we've already done before, but I just wanted to remind you that coming out this weekend on Christmas Day is War Horse, the best film of 2011. This is a beautiful, gorgeous, sweeping cinematic masterpiece from one of the greatest directors of all time, Steven Spielberg. Do not miss War Horse. Alright, that's going to do it for our show this week. Everybody, please have a Merry Christmas and a great New Year. We will be back at the beginning of January with a brand new show, kicking it off with our top 10 and our worst 10 of 2011. So from all of us here at Shot and Cut Films, we thank you for watching.